Welcome back, you guys. I'm so glad that you guys clicked to part two. So, now, like I said, we're going to talk about some of the harder parts of feminism and what hard life was like in the 60s and 70s for women who were married and, trying to have kids. And we're going to cover some hard topics like domestic violence, unequal pay, what that was like trying to deal with that, and how you really work together with your friends to try to build something powerful and get out of the suppression that you were dealing with. So if you guys want to hear more stories about that, please keep on watching. So, looking at today, obviously we're still we still live in a pretty sexist society, but I wanted to ask you some questions. What was it like? What do you notice the difference of expectations towards me as a 19-year-old woman and then the expectations of you as a 19-year-old woman in the 60s? Like, what was that like? Because I know you got married to my grandpa, when you were 19, right?
I did, and
was that common?
It's very common. I had friends that got married the day after high school. It was just common. What you did as how we were raised, most of us, was you were going to finish high school, definitely. You might go to college, or you might get a job as a secretary, a nurse, or a teacher. That was pretty much the career path. You were either a nurse, a teacher, a flight attendant. That was another thing you could be. A waitress, those kinds of jobs. But there was no thought back in my day. I mean, I don't know one single woman. I didn't know anybody who was going to school to study business administration or corporate work.
How did you feel about that? Were you just kind of going along with it?
Yeah, we didn't know any different. We didn't know any different at all. I wanted to get married because I fell in love with your grandfather when I was 16 years old, and I couldn't wait to get married, and neither could he. It was what you did then, too. So we got married very young at 19 and set up housekeeping, and that was just all I wanted to do was keep house and have babies. I just couldn't wait to have babies.
How many babies did you want? He was
in school. I wanted at least 2. He was in school, still in college, and I dropped out of college. I went for 2 years, dropped out, so that I could go to work while he went to school. And our income was all about what I made, and we lived very simply in a little bitty apartment, and just very happy, And then we had started having babies a couple of years later, and that's what you did back then. Well, then what happened was the 70s came along, and when your mom and your Uncle Jason were school age and going to school all day, I started going, what is wrong with this picture? How come the men get to have their careers, get to travel, get to have all these exciting experiences and do all this? And I loved being a mom. That wasn't it. But there was a part of me that was very unfulfilled, that I had thoughts. I had intelligence. I had things I wanted to do and things I wanted to share and things I wanted to be.
Did you feel different from your friends in that
aspect? No, it was starting to happen. This was called consciousness raising. And we used to have groups of women would get together in their living rooms while their babies played on the floor and talk about how kind of miserable we were, that we didn't have another outlet, that we did not have. Some women wanted to be artists. Some women were really thinking about business careers or starting a business or doing things. And it was just extremely difficult because the culture had always had women in the home. That was our place, raising the children, cooking the food, doing the laundry, doing all that. And the man went out and made the money. And when he came home, everything was supposed to be perfect and beautiful because he'd had a hard day. And he was supposed to get pampered.
And that came from the 40s and the 50s,
that was the way it was. And it all started to change in the 70s. And for me personally, I went back to school. I was starving for more education, and I went back to school then. And started studying art and art history and everything, and started taking art courses and painting and ceramics and all that. And I did all that while my children were in school during the day, so that it didn't take away from my time with them. I was always there to pick them up after school and everything. But I just started coming alive, because I had this part of me that had been so locked up and put in a box. And it just started opening.
So I'm going to ask kind of a hard question.
Okay.
So in the 40s and 50s, it was pretty, from what me and my friends have heard and learned, it was pretty stereotypical for people to just sweep domestic violence under the rug. And men were perfectly, especially in the 40s and 50s, perfectly allowed to beat their wives, and nobody would talk about it. And the wives would just have to put up with it. Did you see, I know Mr. would never do that, because Mr. and you're just perfect together. But did you know any of your friends that were going through that at all?
I can honestly tell you, no. Here's the thing about that. Good. Women kept their private issues like that. It wasn't talked about.
Even if you guys saw like bruises or anything
I never witnessed that, fortunately. Later on in life, I learned when I had friends who got divorced and everything, I heard stories of things that had happened. But during that time, it was not, and sexual abuse, domestic abuse, all those things.
It's very taboo.
That was not in the conversation at the time. It was more inequality of pay, job opportunities, women's role in the family, being just subservient and a mother and a caregiver for everybody and everything. So it was more focused on that. The rest of it, I wouldn't say the sexual abuse issues really came to light, and domestic abuse started coming to light in the mid to late 80s, and definitely in the 1990s. That all started to emerge. But and divorce. I mean, when I grew up as a child, I had one
Wasn't
friend.
That basically like a crime? Like, oh my gosh.
Well, it was just people didn't get divorced. They stuck it out. And it was terrible in most cases. And I had one friend, my best friend, and her parents got divorced. And it was like this enormous
deal.
Really big. So that changed. And I would invite you to learn about some of the real feminist voices, the pioneers. They're women that are my age now. But we truly were the ones who started to clear the pathway for all of you beautiful young women who now have voices.
And you certainly did a great job of that with all of your accomplishments.
Well, I'm just
you
so
guys have
proud.
to check out her website. She has done so much to change.
Well, I'm just so proud of the young women like you now who have voices and who are not afraid to speak your truth and to speak truth to power, because unless we speak truth to power and unless we challenge the status quo and authority, things can slide backwards. And to me, that would be a travesty for women. I'm talking about women now.
I think we are not putting up with any of the sliding back. I think all of us are trying to move forward. So
I invite you to, in mid-January, there will be marches, women's marches all over the country. I invite you to, look in your newspapers, look online to see what's happening in your area. Get out there and march. It's so energizing. You won't believe how it feels. And there's so many good men. I want to make something really clear, too, about being a feminist does not mean you hate men and does not mean you bash men either. That's counterproductive, and it's wrong, in my opinion. There are so many good men out there. If you go march, you will see so many amazing men out there walking with their wives, bringing their children, participating because they believe, they're feminists, they believe that women should have equal rights. That's what feminism means more than anything. Equality in the sexes. And so please, if you're going to be a feminist, don't be a man hater, because that doesn't serve any purpose, and it doesn't help the movement of feminism, and it makes you an angry person.
Yeah.
And but be alert and be aware, because there are also predators out there. Mm-hmm. So you've got to be on your toes and paying attention, and not take it from people who might have other motives for you. Speak your truth, be strong, be courageous, use your voices for good, and use your voice and your intelligence. I know how intelligent you are and how intelligent you are. And, you put that intelligence to work and be creative and think outside the box. And there's absolutely nothing you can't do. Nothing, if you put your mind and heart and energy into it. Nowadays,
What advice would you give girls? So 2 last wrapping up questions. What advice would you give girls today as to how to stay true to themselves as far as beauty goes, and not let, how to stay not so self-conscious and not so put it, because I feel like that is a huge issue right now, is beauty image and like how we perceive ourselves.
It's huge.
How did you get through that as a little girl, and what would you give your input on how we can go through that, especially with social media?
Question. Such a good, important question, Haley. Back when I was young, it was about looking in the mirror, and usually you had somebody, like I said, Jean Shrimpton or Twiggy, or somebody that was sort of your role model, that you wanted to do your makeup like them and everything.
Like now we have the Kardashians and Rihanna.
Right. However, advertising, movies, a lot of things are orchestrated by men, and the men's vision of what a woman is supposed to look like. Mm-hmm. And marketing for clothing, for breast implants, for all of that stuff is male dominated. So what I would say to you is, if you're anticipating starting to alter your body in some way, ask the question, why am I doing this really? Mm-hmm. Is it for me, or is this to fit into a mold that is basically, I believe, unnatural and not? Here's the thing. As you age, believe me, you can see, look at our faces.
Man, you look beautiful.
Thank you. Age. I'm not putting myself down. I'm just saying, as you age, you age. It's a natural thing. Mm-hmm. You can either go kicking and screaming year by year and just go run out and buy the next product and try to slather it on there and keep that beautiful, youthful glow that Haley and that all of you have right now, because that will diminish over time, and it's not a bad thing. That's the thing. It's not a bad thing. Mm-hmm. Aging is not something to be feared or dreaded.
Like the right man will never, ever pressure you or judge you.
Exactly.
Like Mr. does.
Exactly.
I call my grandfather Mr. I know that's weird, but that's a whole story. Just so you guys know who I'm referring to when I say that. But yeah, continue.
So pick young men who love you for who you are, and don't try to tell you, that you need this or you need that or whatever. Mm-hmm. And as you begin to age, embrace it. I really encourage you to embrace it, because it's kind of amazing, actually, to look in the mirror and go, wow, what's happening? This is so interesting. Like recently, I've just stopped wearing foundation, because foundation on a 71-year-old face doesn't work so well. It just wants to sit right in the creases and right in all the little pockets that are beginning to pop up here and there. And it makes you look dragged down and tired and everything else. So I use a lot of moisturizer. I swear by good skincare. So, put your pennies in a penny bank. Save up money for good skincare as you start to grow older, because I think that's great. And most importantly, I think the most important message I would say to all of you is work on your inner world. The outer will reflect that, and you will shine so bright with a natural light if you work on your inner self. Keep your heart open, believe in yourself, Trust the beauty of your own true nature, whatever that is for you, whoever you are, however you're oriented in the world, whatever your sexual orientation is, whatever your race is, whatever your spiritual beliefs or non-beliefs are. Just embrace who you fully, truly are as a person.
Advice.
Really. And if you do that, and if you approach life with a loving heart and kindness for others and compassion for others, and speak your truth and be your authentic self, you won't believe how your skin will radiate, your whole being will radiate light. And the makeup is a wonderful thing and loads of fun, and by all means play with it and have a great time, but it's not everything. Mm-hmm. It's just not the whole package. Mm-hmm. So,
well, thank you so much, Nana.
You're welcome, Haley. Thank
you so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, everyone, I hope you enjoyed this, and if you have any more suggestions or anyone else you'd like me to feature, please let me know. I do definitely want to feature you on my channel again next time you come and visit. That was so much fun.
That was so much fun.
So if you guys liked, please comment, and please feel free to go check out my Nana's website on in the description box below. I'm going to leave a link to that, and I'm also going to leave a link for her 2 books. They're beautiful. They're a must-read for anyone who wants to hear more about feminism and pilgrimage and
the Middle Ages. Mm-hmm. It's historical fiction, but it's a woman's story. So.
It's beautiful. But thank you so much,
You're
Nana.
welcome.
I hope you guys enjoyed.
It was great fun, and be true to yourself, ladies.
Remember to have a wonderful week. Bye, guys.
Much love.
Bye.